Hi, Jay. Thank you for joining CX Show podcast number 3. And nice to have you on. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to do it, Dominic.
Okay, excellent. So you were asking me a bit earlier about, you were telling me actually that you wanted to also get into YouTube this year. And you had a question around the number of subscribers or how that works, or what was the exact question?
Yeah, just like how's it working out for you in a business context?
Well, it's working out well. So I have a customer experience agency, and I've been doing this for a while now. I'm in a decade of experience. 2 years since I've been doing it solo. Built a team. We're 9 people.
Wow.
9 people now. And for the most part, I understood that like 90%, not 90%, but 70% of the leads that I had coming in last year were coming from YouTube. So I decided to double down this year on that. So I go by this philosophy of giving value, and then people reach out and say, "Hey, I need your help because I can't be bothered with the details. So can you help me?" And in some way, I imagine that you do the same, except that your power is LinkedIn. So that's more or less why we're here.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And just on that note, like one of the things maybe we'll talk about is my business partner and I years ago created a customer success community, which is I don't know how that relates necessarily to what you all do, and we had the same mantra and mentality: give value before you ask for anything in return. And when you do that, you can just build such a huge audience. We had 12,000 members in that community, highly engaged. We started with virtual calls like we're doing here, but then we moved to, we had a podcast for years and years. We had live virtual events, which were well attended, and people knew who we were when we got there. We had sponsors. Like it turned into something amazing. So yes, I definitely subscribe to your value system there of give before you expect anything in return, and really amazing things happen when you take on that mindset. So kudos to you. Tell me about you said you have a CX agency. I think you described it that way. What is it? What do you all focus on, and who are your customers?
Well, our main strength is Zendesk, because that's more my background. So I've been doing that for a decade already. And people have various requests, not just related to Zendesk, as it's just one of the tools that they use for their customer service, and they use it as CRM. So they need to integrate with other systems. So that doesn't just require understanding Zendesk, rather than multiple systems. And the best practices for customer experience and customer service specifically are the same. You can reproduce the same functionality everywhere. Some tools do it better than others. There's no tool that can do everything. So that's why it needs a level of customization. So that's how I more broadly describe it as a CX agency rather than just a Zendesk agency.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
I'm curious to understand, like, you can tell us a bit about your beginnings, like how you got in the sphere. And you mentioned a bit earlier your business partner, and you started this company a while back. I know that you transitioned to a new role, and I would like for you to maybe do a bit of a walkthrough so I can better understand the audience as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't know how well your audience will know me, so I can start maybe go a little bit longer on this just to give some context. But I started out my career 24 years ago as an engineer. Taught myself how to code in college while I was getting a undergraduate business degree, and just really fell in love with software at that point, what it could do and how you could scale and scale things and solve business problems. And so I did that for probably the first 7 years of my career. I did a lot of data warehousing, data analytics work, a lot of hands-on software development, solution architecture. I joined my first software company in 2005. So doing the math, that's
19 years
ago. 19 years ago this year, yeah. And I was in the services organization. So the services team there, we were very heavily involved with pre-sales and helping our customers understand what was possible with our technology. So I got heavily involved on the sales side of things, and yet still had an eye on implementing and helping customers be successful with our software, which is sort of like the core value of customer success, if you will. So did that, became a people leader in like 2006, and and ran large services teams, 100 plus people, over the next 5 years there at that software company. But then I took a little bit of a turn in my career and I went into product management for 3 years. And we can talk about the value maybe of doing that kind of pivot in your career a little bit later, but it's something that I would highly recommend people who are interested in software careers to spend some time there. So did that for 3 years, ran a platform product team at a company called Blackbaud. From there, I went to an earlier stage startup that had raised a bunch of money and had some market traction called People Matter. It was in the HR tech space. It was my first executive job where I was literally part of the executive team, sitting in the executive meetings every week, helping solve business problems from a cross-functional perspective. Left there in 2017 after we sold that company, launched a consulting firm similar to your agency back in 2017, ran that for a few years, built the community that I mentioned. As part of that, we sold that business in 2020. 2020. I joined Higher Logic as a chief customer officer at that point in time, and just recently left there. And now I lead go-to-market teams. So I lead sales, marketing, customer success functions. I really think of myself as a really sort of a well-rounded leader. I've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, but my real depth is in go-to-market and customer retention strategies and engagement and all that kind of stuff. So I always describe my career as a little bit of a goat path in terms of how I got to what I do today and the kind of things that I work on. So happy to embellish on any of that's interesting to you or would be to the audience.
So I tend to get to get things personal in what regards to what catches my interest because I'm in my journey. I am still behind you, so I'm still looking forward to growing as in my career. I was especially intrigued about the idea of being a better leader. I am just thinking retrospectively about 2023. It seems that I might be lacking there because 3 of my best people left. So I might be, having some trouble with the leadership. And what would make a better leader in your view? First
of all, I would say it's good to be introspective about those kind of things. The comment you just made is a really interesting one. But there's a lot of market forces at play when people leave your company, right? You're obviously a small business. People could be looking for more stability than you can offer. They might be looking for a different career progression than you can offer. So it may not be your personal leadership that was the challenge there. Now, maybe it was, right? I'm not saying it wasn't. But there's a lot of dynamics, at play in our companies. But I'll ask you this: like, what do you sense? Why do you sense those people left the business?
I like to keep it real because I'm a person and I'm on this journey. And I try to be open about it because, why not? Right. So I am, I don't know if I should attribute everything to me. It's just a personal thing that I like to think that it's my fault because of all the reading I've been doing and people tell you to, be accountable. I tend to exaggerate that a little bit too much in the sense that, I don't know, there's an accident happening in the street and, maybe it was something I did. Well, obviously this is an exaggeration. I am proud of the people that I've worked with. They have left for much bigger companies. Deutsche Bank, is one of the biggest banks in the world. And then another one left, double the money and moved to Germany to, pursue a career in a very big EV company. And so 2 of them left for much bigger companies, as you say, stability maybe. So I don't attribute that all to myself. There was one case where maybe I could have done things better. I think the number one fault that I had was to try to build a company with outside consultants rather than having them in-house. So maybe the cohesion didn't happen as well as it could have if they would have been, in-house hired, so to say. So I don't think it's just that, but that was the thing that was always in the back of my mind. Hey man, you're kind of just like trying to get in the water, but not get in the water. Like, do I hire these people? Nah, maybe what if I don't get enough work? So, that's gives you a picture where I am as well in terms of the my journey.
So it's as much of a strategy question as it is maybe a personal leadership question. And by the way, let me say this: if you had two amazing people on your team that you were able to attract in the first place, that went on to take bigger roles in bigger companies, that's a win. That's a win for you. I would flip the whole thing on its head, right? Because you've been a part of their success story. I don't know. I mean, maybe they were good enough before they worked with you to go to these companies, but maybe not. Maybe the experience they got from working in your business gave them the skills and the chops that they needed to go work at Deutsche Bank, right? So, to give yourself some credit as well.
Thank you. Pat on the back on myself. Yeah, thank you. I didn't look at it that way, but that's a nice way. That's a nicer way of looking at things. So yeah, thank you for that.
But when it comes back, like, what have you learned, right? Have you learned that you actually need to pivot your business model so that you have more dedicated and committed resources to you and what you're trying to solve in your business? Yeah,
that's number one. Yeah. And also that I have to do some more reading on leadership. This is another thing. Yeah.
Where do you think you're deficient as a leader? Where do you when leadership is a lot of things, right? So what is it that you think is missing? Is it communication? Is it the way you've organized the work? Is it the way that the structure and the benefits and that you've set up for the team? Like, what is it that you think is the root cause of, or the root thing that you want to fix as a leader?
Maybe it's the structure of the progression in one's career. That was definitely lacking. I had an aha moment while reading it in a book. Like, oh yeah, right. I didn't have any career plan for them. How they grow and how they scale. Well, it used to be 11 of us, so I don't know where you can advance. I obviously would have wanted to subtract myself from the picture. That wouldn't have been a problem, but that was the only way up. So I didn't do that. So incentivization in terms of a career path, that was definitely not there. So that's one of the blind spots, essentially, that I discovered.
It's difficult in a small company to have really crisp career paths. Like, most companies don't build career path structure out until much later in their evolution. That being said, as a founder, as a leader, no matter how big your company is, you can always be thinking about the individual career paths of your people. And you've got few enough people to where you probably know them intimately, I would hope, right? And you probably have some sense of what they want to accomplish. If not, are you having one-on-ones with your teammates?
Yes, of course. I am. Yeah.
So if you're doing that, you probably know where they want to go with their career, and you can help them achieve that, right? They may not want to be consultants for the long run, and you need to know that. And that way you won't feel as bad when they do have to leave and go to their next opportunity, which is working for one company in a stable 9-to-5 kind of job environment, right? That would be a win for them. And if you help them achieve that, guess what? They're going to be loyal to you forever, and they will see you as a great leader.
So definitely then communication is one of the things that I should be working on. Funny enough, my wife always says that. So here it comes in a career environment as well.
Well, that is, I would say if there were, just a handful of pillars of being a leader of anything, communication is got to be one of those, right? What's going on? Where are we going as a team? What's our vision? And then the individualized communications. What do you want to achieve? How can I help you do that? Here's some feedback for you, right? Based on what I saw on the last call we were on together, or the last customer we met with on site, or the project work that you delivered. A lot of times, especially in small companies, it's hard. It's uncomfortable to provide feedback, but feedback is a gift. And if you learn how to give feedback in a really, what's the word I'm looking for? If you learn how to give feedback in a way that's constructive, and that the recipient knows that you have their best interest at heart for becoming a better professional in whatever you do, then that will be considered a value add to their careers that you offer as their leader. So I would encourage you to think about giving feedback as maybe a pillar of that communication.
I didn't expect to be mind blown in the first 20 minutes. But yeah, no, you're definitely right. That makes sense. And that puts things into a perspective where I don't see that often, because oftentimes it's just me, myself, and I. So very grateful for that point. So I want to ask you something about your journey. So I think my next question is going to be regarding the customer experience and what that means to you, and how that guided your career and how you find it now, for example.
Customer experience means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. A lot of times a team will be called the customer experience team, and it's the customer support team, the people who field support requests from their customers. It's also the function that might own the voice of the customer program in marketing. It can be a lot of different things. Customer success sometimes gets lumped in there, which is a world that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, writing about, and engaging with the market on. So at its essence, I think customers of any company. Let me back up. Companies that really thrive in this world don't just sell to a customer one time, right? They either sell subscription services to a customer, which is an area that I happen to play in a lot. That's my area of expertise. Or they sell to customers that buy things from them multiple times. Like, I think of how many times have I gone to here. Are you in the US or are you somewhere else?
No, I'm in Europe.
Oh, you're in Europe. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you probably have you've certainly got Starbucks, right? I can't tell you how many times I've been to Starbucks in the past year. It's embarrassing. We have restaurants. We have certain things that you buy on Amazon. You probably buy them over and over and over because they're known quantity, they work, it's a quality product, and you have a good experience when you use it. So to me, the whole idea of customer experience is, how do we create a product and deliver that product in such a way that the customer will want to buy it multiple times, or if it's a subscription, stay with the subscription for a long time. It means we're adding a lot of value, and the customer has a low friction, high quality experience when using that product. Those two things are key. And the economics between a business that has to go find new customers all the time because it's not getting repeat business, and a company that has a lot of repeat business, there's just no comparison, because customer acquisition is so incredibly expensive. So when I think about customer experience, whether it's in e-commerce, whether it's in retail, whether it's in online subscription software sales, or anything else you buy, it's really about the idea of making sure that customers are getting value from that product and having an experience that entices them to come back and buy it again over and over and over, so you can scale your business.
I completely agree. So I know it was a broad question. I like to throw the ball in this sense, because I see that people get confused, as you mentioned, with customer experience, customer success, customer service, and they sort of lump them together. I view customer experience as the, let's say, umbrella of both customer service, customer success, and it's obviously comprised of multiple bits and pieces. And it's before sales, before you sell anything, which is marketing, your website, your whatever platform, YouTube, wherever you put yourself out there, an ad. And then there's sales, where you actually buy. And then the after sales, so what happens, if customer comes back and needs help with turning it on, asking for an invoice, where's the order, etc. Or I don't know, can I get a discount for the next one, whatever that is. And then I guess the third one, and this is just, to me, correct me if I'm wrong, is essentially just maintaining that relationship somehow. And then, so yeah, these would be like let's say the main pillars of how customer experience can be. This is where it can be found, let's say, and how like a journey would look like, right?
Yeah, I really like that you included the marketing and the sales experience as part of the overall customer journey in the overall CX, because a lot of times, if your prospects are doing so much research so much discovery before they even pick up the phone to call you. Who is this company? What is it they offer? Are they speaking my language? Do they go to your website? They ask peers in their small private groups that you can't see. And how you educate customers with everything from the content on your website to how you position and how specific you are to the market that you're trying to sell to. Are you serving a niche, or are you trying to spray, and hit a broad horizontal market? Those are all part of the experience. Then when I get on the phone with Dominic to talk about the services you offer, do you do discovery with me, or do you just try to cram your offerings down my throat, right? I mean, I'm sure you do the former, not the latter, because that's just the way we sell, right? But people have moved beyond. Sales used to play a much different role than it plays today. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and earlier, sales was there to educate, because you couldn't find all that information online. You didn't have access, by the click of a button or the sending of an email or a posting of a message in a community to get feedback on what different products did and what the experience was using those and what value you get. And so salespeople played a much different role as educators. But now if the buyers are coming to you 70 or 80% educated on what you do already, then it becomes a much different prospect, right? A much different experience. And so salespeople need to sort of adjust and figure out how they can add value, right? Marketing needs to figure out how you can add value to the experience of discovering about the problem that they're trying to solve and how your product does that. And the best way, I mean, we've talked about it already. The best way to do that is offer value without any expectation in return. And guess what? It usually comes around anyway. You usually get the value back. But if you always offer to give, no matter what the outcome is, you can't control the outcome, but you can control what you give, right? And so I just think I think the world will continue to change in terms of how people buy services and software and lots of other things. Look, that's why Amazon is what Amazon is, right?
100%.
They said early on, people, they wanted to put reviews on the marketplace, right, for products, and people were like, oh, why would you do that? Because if it gets a bad review, it's going to hurt your sales. And Jeff Bezos said, no, it's actually going to help sales, because they're going to trust us more, and they're going to be able to buy only the best products and have a better experience. And then, man, it doesn't make sense to put our competitors on the marketplace against products that we're trying to sell organically. Well, absolutely it does, because then the business becomes the focal point for all of my online shopping, right? Which Amazon is probably 90% of what I buy online. I'm a little embarrassed to say that, but it's probably true. Maybe more than 90% in a given year. So anyway, not to go on too long about it, but that's a really important thing that you said there around sales and marketing being part of the experience.
So on that point of if you get a bad review, then that people won't buy it. Have you ever noticed, I don't know if you do this, but there's even a meme about this where somebody looks at the reviews and they see 5 stars and they're like, and then they see 4.6, like, okay, this one, I want this one, right? It makes sense, because, nobody believes like a perfect 5, like, okay, something's sketchy here. Yeah, but if somebody 100%. Had some bad experience, like, okay, there's traction, this is real. There are real people actually involved, and that's a very good point.
It's like you said to me at the beginning, like, this is about authenticity, right? About being real. And people can sniff out when you're not real. 5 stars does not usually happen in the wild.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So it's okay. It's okay.
And it's also funny that you mentioned Jeff Bezos, because I watched the Lex Friedman podcast. I don't know if you saw that with him. It's fairly recent. I think it's maybe like 1 month old. And he mentioned something very interesting there about some metrics that they at Amazon, they look at. And they noticed that, and he mentioned that there are some metrics that for them, they don't make sense, because somebody invented a metric with something in mind, trying to track something, which for them, in the case that they were analyzing and they were having a meeting about, it didn't make any sense. Like, okay, we need to drop this metric. We need to redraw it and call it something else, because we're tracking the wrong thing, and we're actually looking at things that somebody else imagined and what they needed whenever they call this as being important. So oftentimes has that ever happened to you that you're, maybe you were looking at some metrics just because they were supposed to be tracked, and it comes with the job description to, to look at certain metrics? How do you handle that?
Oh my gosh. What a fantastic point. It's not just metrics. It's actually things like processes and how you do things, how you structure your team. If you go out and read Zendesk is a great example, right? Very great, awesome software company. Love Zendesk. Go out and look at their content, right? Their blogs and their resources on how to build and run a fantastic customer service experience within your company. Those are, to your point, those are suggestions they're full of commonalities and practices that people use across their business. But that is a starting point. It's a starting point to get you oriented. The thing you can't replace when it comes to figuring out how to build the experience for your customers is who your customers actually are, what their needs actually are, what they expect, what they need in terms of interaction. I've been talking with some friends recently that own a software startup that caters to car dealerships. Okay, and it's a sales tool for enabling sales people within car dealerships. And they are much different buyers than you and I, probably than the average buyer of Zendesk, right? Just as big. They have massive companies, conglomerates of car dealerships and that type of thing. But the buyer persona is very unique. They don't like virtual meetings. They don't have time for virtual meetings. They really want in-person interactions with your team because that's what they're accustomed to in their part of the industry. So you can change that as a vendor or as someone who sells something into that market. But the best thing to do is probably conform first and then figure out how to change it over time. Because if you come to them and say, hey, we don't do anything in person, they're going to be like, well, sorry, we're going elsewhere. Right. So to me, it's about really knowing your market. It's about really listening to what your customers are saying whenever they talk. That's why discovery is so important in the sales process. It's why it's important for marketing leaders, marketing people in general, to be talking directly with the market. It's in the name, right? Market. They need to connect directly so that they really understand the problems that their target audience are having. They're building personas that they can rely on, that then we can learn how to talk to better, learn how to position our services better too. I think I might have gotten off track with your initial point or question, but that's what came to mind for me.
No, it makes sense because I have an example myself. So working with this Canadian e-commerce, they're selling socks, but they're for diabetics, and it's somehow it constrains the leg, and the circulation is it helps circulation. So the demographic is over 50, so 50 plus, preferably even 60 plus. So vast majority of clients are 60 plus, and they were looking for ways to track users and to make the customer service system more efficient, keep costs low, as per any company. And, obviously one of the first suggestions were, why don't we use bots? Obviously, right? So self-service, we encourage people to know to talk with the bot. It gives them how do I find my size? Okay, this is an answer, which is repetitive, always the same. It's boring anyway, so let's just get rid of it. And then after doing a bit of discovery, they prefer to talk on the phone. They don't like to, not even email. They don't like even email. They want to talk to somebody. And if if they were being adjusted in this manner, they would order for their friends and for, their next door neighbor.
That's
and
right.
They would be much more open to buying. So the profile was completely different to what we were expected to find in e-commerce. So discovery is so important and crucial, actually.
And then, there's a corollary to this. Whatever you find that your customer needs, then you figure out ways to take the friction out of it for them, right? So let's play that all the way out. So this company sells compression socks, right, to people 60 or older who like to talk on the phone. Well, now then we have to all of a sudden think about, how do we staff a team that can always talk to as many of these customers as want to talk to us, right? It might be tough. if you look at, there's a body of work. A guy named Matt Dixon wrote a book called The Effortless Experience. Do you know that book?
Yeah, I saw it in your one of your posts. And just quick parenthesis, I bought the book and I also made a video about it. It's going to air out in about a week. So I
Awesome.
completely kind of stole your idea. So I wanted to let you know this way that I got inspired and kind of stole your idea. So thank you.
Hey, it's not my idea. Matt Dixon and his team did all the research. I would encourage you to reach out to him. I've interviewed him on my podcast before. Great guy, super open. You might even be able to get him on your podcast if you reach out to him, or I can help you. But once you figure out how you need to engage with your customer, then it's about making that as simple as possible. And the thing that I think about in the scenario you just gave is, I love it when I try to call like the airlines do this a lot, or my bank. I try to call or I try to contact a support rep because I've tried everything I know how to do digitally, and now I need to just talk to somebody. So I try to get on the phone. I love it when they have an option to call me back when the agent's available, right? Mm-hmm. Because then I can do other things with my 30 minutes and I don't have to sit there with my AirPods in and listen to this terrible hold music. It doesn't matter how good the music is. It's terrible. It's a terrible experience, right? I'm basically chained to my desk for 30 minutes waiting for somebody to pick up the phone. Well, the whole idea in the effortless experience is customers don't care about being delighted. They care about getting their problem solved and getting their problem solved quickly with as little friction and effort as possible. It's why it's called the effortless experience. You know that because you've reviewed the book. But that's what I think about, right? Is like, how can we make this easier for our customers? Take friction out of the process, whether it's the buying process, whether it's the implementation process, whether it's the support process after I've bought the product and I need help with it. Like, how do you just make that easy for people?
So on this point and on this note, what must organizations understand about customer success, and what are they actually not getting about empowering the customer to come back, essentially to obviously if you delight them, you have to do a lot of thinking and to apply a lot of empathy. So you remove a lot of those problems for them, and you do that with the product, but you also do it with some processes that you anticipate some of the problems that those customers will have with using your software or your services or whatever that might be.
So this is a big topic that I spend a lot of time writing and focusing on. I think the thing that let's back up. So if you look at what's happened over the past 15 years, we've had an unprecedented run with basically zero interest rate. It's called ZIRP, zero interest rate period, is what I'm seeing it pop up as on different social media and whatnot. We've spent really heavily on what I would call concierge service for customers, and I'm talking mostly about the software as a service SaaS world right now. And we've done that on the back of fundraising dollars. In other words, financing dollars that weren't generated through normal business operations like operating cash flow, right? Mm-hmm. The problem with that is when interest rates go up and everybody and growth slows, which it has done over the past 18 months for 99% of the technology industry, then you're in a weird position, right? You've got all these resources that were doing high touch work, but now your metrics are out of whack. Your growth isn't fast enough. Your margins aren't high enough to support the valuation of the business because the growth is also not there. And now you see what we've seen over the past 18 months, which is a lot of layoffs, a lot of right sizing of teams that were sort of bloated and not making enough impact for the dollars that were being spent on them. I say all that to say that the biggest thing, so customer success is the idea in software that we have a bunch of data about how our customers are using the products. Most of these products are cloud-based. We have usage information. We know who's logging in. We know what they're doing in the software on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis. We should be using that information to help guide and coach the customer on how to get more value out of the product, to intervene when we see those usage levels begin to decline, right? Mm-hmm. Not every company is the same, right? They have different characteristics of their products and how they're used. So customer success is really, it's a few different things, but it's really an outcome, right? It's a result of getting value out of a product that you need to solve a problem for you on a day-to-day basis. What it's morphed into is a team, and that team has sort of consumed support, implementation and services, account management in some cases, renewals in some cases. So there's a lot of different definitions around what the physical structure of a team, of a customer success team, has become. But really, the spirit of it is all the same. Show the customer their results, coach them on how to get better. That doesn't need to be a huge team to be able to achieve that outcome. So those are just some high-level thoughts on customer success, but it's still a critical thing for companies to focus on. Their customers need to be successful so that they continue to renew, continue to subscribe. Again, back to what we talked about initially. In the software world, you don't get paid upfront for 10 years of services, right? You get paid 1 year at a time, if you're lucky, maybe 1 quarter at a time, maybe 1 month at a time, as you go down market. So in order for those customers to keep paying over and over and over, which you absolutely need to really grow and scale a SaaS company, you got to make sure they're getting value. And that comes from a number of different places, not just the customer success team.
So on this note, when you say that organizations, that is clear that they have, being a cloud-based system, you have the ability to see what the user is doing, how they're using the software, if they're using it. So are you saying that it's maybe, or do you think it's maybe a technology problem? They don't know how to access this data. They don't know how to use it. Or is it because of not knowing of the concept of customer success? So I imagine that, I don't know, it probably depends from company to company, but in theory, it shouldn't be that hard. That's what I'm trying to say. The concept of it, right? You need to have repeat business, because acquiring new customers is very expensive, much more expensive than selling to the ones that are already convinced or have expressed, intent to, or that have already maybe bought the service already.
I don't know where the disconnect is, to be honest with you, but I do know that it exists, and it exists in probably a minor majority of companies out there. I always think about Zendesk. It's a great example. I've been a customer of Zendesk probably 3 or 4 times over 3 or 4 different companies that I've both advised. Actually, if you count the companies I've advised, probably half a dozen times. And something Zendesk did early on, early on when I was at a startup, probably 120 people company, there's probably 10 people in support at the time. Very small customer for Zendesk. Even back then, we were pretty small. We didn't have a named CSM. There wasn't a person that we could call at Zendesk to get help, but we did have access to a fantastic support experience. I didn't use the software directly. I was sort of a leader over that area, so I might look at a report every once in a while, but I didn't use the software on a day-to-day basis. However, Zendesk took the care to send me an email each month, and that email contained my team's results for the month. How many cases did they work? What was the average time to close all of those cases? What was the open backlog of cases? You can probably think of 10 other metrics that I'm not thinking of. And not only that, they showed me relative to 10 or 15 other companies. They didn't tell me who they were, but they showed me similar size, similar number of support agents, similar number of cases, how we performed relative to those 10 or 15 other companies in our cohort, right? That was really valuable information for me as a leader. I used that email, and I would go have a conversation once a month with the person who reported to me, who ran the support team. And we would talk about those metrics. I wasn't holding him accountable to them. I was just trying to understand how he thought about those metrics. So that email for me as an executive sponsor on that account, and for my support leader as the day-to-day contact on that account for Zendesk, got tremendous value. We got to see our results. We got to see the value that product was helping us create. And they created value for me outside of the product, because I don't log into it, right? Anybody can do that. Anybody can find a proxy for value in your product and automate the sending of that. And then guess what? If you want to have a CSM call in on top of that, guess what you're talking about? You're talking about that monthly report, right? Did you see the monthly report that we sent you? Here's 3 things I noticed about it that you may want to think about, in 3 ways that you can go get better. And by the way, here's 3 blog articles that talk about how you go do that. Wow. Not many vendors are doing that. I can tell you that confidently.
So in recent years, a lot has changed with Zendesk, especially with going private. and you still have that ability to receive a report, and it's still very good with what you get out of the box. You can of course customize it to get a better picture of stuff that is more interesting that you want to find out in your leadership role. Obviously Zendesk is one of the tools that you use, right? And have you pulled data out of Zendesk and combine it with data from marketing or from sales to have a bigger picture? And how do you use that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, one of the most important data sets, which is often disconnected from support data, is the product backlog for resolving an issue with a software product that stems from a case. And if those two things are disconnected, a lot of people track the product backlog in like Jira, right? For example, or product board, or some product tool where you can prioritize tasks and user stories and all that kind of stuff. If that data is disconnected from Zendesk, well, you can't communicate appropriately with the customer, right? I mean, forget about analytics. You just can't communicate well, because if the engineering team says, "Oh, look, this is too small. It's cosmetic. We're actually not going to do something about this right now," then the first thing I want to do as a support leader is go back to that customer and say, "Hey, look, appreciate the feedback. We reviewed it. We're actually not going to do anything about this right now. I'm closing your case. Please let me know if you have any other questions." That's a really valuable thing to do, right? Because that little cosmetic issue, if you just leave it open for the customer and you don't ever close it out with the customer, guess what they think? Well, we always tell them stuff and they just don't listen, right? They don't listen. And I've got all these cases sitting out there that nobody's ever closed or responded to. And then the perception of what they do or what your company does goes down. So that's just one little rant on how to operationalize between like engineering and a support team and a software company. But every day we're trying to get a more full picture about what the overall customer engagement experience is like for the customer. And so it's really important. Like one of the things I've done in the past is, who are the top customers that are initiating cases with us? They usually come, it's the old 80-20 Pareto, right? You get 20% or 80% of the cases from 20% of your customers or less. And then you can say, well, what do these customers have in common? Then you need to look at the CRM data. Well, they're all in this market segment, right? They all bought this pricing plan, which doesn't include Premier support or whatever it is, right? So then how do we go solve the problem of making them more self-sufficient by giving them specific solutions to whatever plan they're on, whatever, market segment they're in, so that they can become better at using the product without having to have us in every conversation. So that's one example of how I would use data. But then you can also look like, where's the concentration? By the way, a lot of people think that more support tickets is a negative impact on overall customer health. It's actually not. It actually demonstrates that your customer is engaged with you. So if they're not saying anything to you, it's usually a much bigger problem than if they're interacting with you on a frequent basis, whether it's through support or any other channel.
That's such a good point. You're right. And if somebody reaches out, they are in a way giving you a chance to help them help you, so they stay with you. So there's the hidden message behind, and you pointed out so well. Exactly. If they don't reach out, then that's a much bigger problem. What sets apart a successful company's leadership? I know we touched on this. So what sets a successful company's leadership from an unsuccessful company's leadership? So what do better leaders do that other leaders can get inspired from? Obviously, in our corner that we're talking customer success. Exactly your strong point. I'm super happy with that.
One of the things I think about a lot is in a software company, we have all these different departments, right? We have sales, we have marketing, we have customer success, we have product and engineering, HR, finance. But here's the interesting thing. In a recurring revenue business, in pretty much every business where everything is interconnected, right? So if I make a change to how I sell the product, there are probably going to be downstream impacts to how I have to service that product, how I retain, how I renew that product. There's really nothing you can do in a software business that isn't interconnected with the other departments in some form or fashion. Okay. So if you buy into that, if you believe that, which I hope everybody would sort of just believe that or take my word for it, then you have to have functional leaders over all those different areas that actually believe and embody that every day in the way that they collaborate, because the way that they collaborate is going to set the tone for how all those teams collaborate down on the front lines, serving customers, engaging with customers on a day-to-day basis, right? If you're territorial as a leader and you have some kind of pissing match going on with, your peers, then guess what? That's probably going to show up in the way that those people interact with customers on the front line. So the leadership team sets the tone for a collaborative and cohesive experience for the customer. What we want all of our people on the front lines to do is, if they hear something that's a problem, but they don't directly own or control, we still want them to say, hey, look, I'm going to go get an answer to this question or this problem for you, and then I'm going to get back to you. Even if they know it's a support issue and they're in customer success, or even if they know, they're in sales, right? And they have to go check in on what's happening with support. And then they can do what I would think of as like a positive handoff, right? It's like, hey, I went and did some digging. We don't know what the answer is yet, but I found a point of contact that's going to carry this forward with you. And I'm now introducing you to that person, right? And they've opened a case on your behalf or something like that. So it's really about how we collaborate. I just had the pleasure of wrapping up my time with probably one of the best executive teams that I've ever worked with at my last company. And on that team, there was a high degree of collaboration. There was a high degree of sort of argument and pushback on one another, but it came from a place of respect and also having a very clear picture about where our business was going and what we were trying to do as a team. So that was the backdrop. Low ego, that's a big part of it. I mean, I've got it. I think I have a huge ego. I'm just me personally, but it's not being less proud of yourself. There's a quote, right? Like, having confidence is something like not thinking less of yourself, but thinking about yourself less. And if you have a team of people who behave that way, it's going to be a really, really good team, right? And so give and take, push and pull, seek to understand before judging, all those types of things. So we could probably do a whole podcast on some of the human elements of leadership. It starts at the top with the CEO and it rolls all the way down from the executive team to the middle layer of management down to the front line.
This rings so true. So whenever I have somebody, even if customer service or sales or products or whatever, and you see them not misbehaving, but not necessarily caring too much, I immediately think about, then means leadership is probably the same. So it's probably a shit company. So I maybe should move on.
So that's a great point.
So I think you mentioned the idea of customer success going a bit above and beyond, or sales for that matter, the same way. If they don't know how to solve something, they put the customer in touch with somebody else to get that solved for them. And that is so true. So, showing accountability and delivering value. And I think there's also the idea, even if you can't solve it, and if you say no, people are so afraid to say no. They are kind of, if they feel that maybe they let the customer down, that they are not going to be liked by them anymore. And that's not necessarily the case. People can take a no. I mean, it's not, we're not children anymore. And okay, they can't fix that for me, but at least they followed through. I'm going to be upset, maybe, I don't know, for the next half an hour, but I'm an adult. I have other stuff going on in my life.
That's right. The phrase that comes to mind, and it doesn't come from customer experience, it comes more from like employee experience, but I think it is Kim Scott from Radical Candor. Clear is kind, right? Being clear is being kind. And I always tell my teams, there's no such thing as maybe. Like, don't ever tell a customer like, oh, we might build that someday. Just tell them, look, no, we're not building that right now. Or, yes, it's on the roadmap and we're going to deliver it in the next 30 days. But there is no in between, because if you give them in between, then guess what? All the customer hears is, yes, you're going to do that. And I'm going to keep asking you about it until I get the answer I'm looking for. And everybody gets more and more frustrated because you're probably never doing that thing. I think of Southwest Airlines. Have you studied,
Yeah. It's like the business books mention them. So it's hard to miss.
They're the only airline in the history of commercial, consumer aviation, transportation that has been profitable for pretty much all of their 40 or 45 year history nonstop, right? when they've been through some pretty rough periods of time. Anyway, so, but they're very clear, right? If you ask them for a first class seat, they're going to say, no, we don't do first class so that we can keep our costs low, because that's why you bought our ticket in the first place, right? Cost low, customer experience as good as it can be for air travel. That's what they're all about. They use the same airplanes, 737s for everything. God bless them right now. All the 737 problems. But they've made a series of strategic decisions about how they're going to run their business to be the number one low cost carrier. And they've stuck to it, and they know how to talk about that all the way down to the front lines. If you ask a flight attendant if you can have a glass of wine on the plane, they're going to be like, no, how about a Coke, right? And that's okay. It's about being clear about who you are, what you are offering, what you're not, and setting great expectations with the customer.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, Jay, thank you so much. Our time is up. Thank you so much for being here with me. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I am very grateful for you being here and sharing some of your wisdom. I'm actually still processing some of the things you said. I'm going to watch this again a few times to let it sink in. So thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It was fun. We'll do it again.
All right. I'll take your word on it. Okay. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, Dominic. Good to meet you. Bye-bye.